Hyokik, you really thought you could get away with this, didn't you? That group chat was supposed to stay between the people who matter. You had no right to drag my private words into it. All right. I've been nothing but generous with you for years. Extra projects, flexible hours, chances most people only dream of. And this is how you thank me. Your family already knows what kind of person you are now. I made sure they heard the truth straight from me. Don't you dare hang up on me. We're not finished until I say we are. Hi, my name is Sarah Klein. I am 33 years old. The phone was still warm in my hand when I lowered it. My parents sat on the couch across from me in the living room of our modest suburban house in Ohio, the one we had bought 3 years ago after scraping together the down payment. My older sister, Emily, had driven in from Columbus with her husband for what was supposed to be a quiet surprise long weekend visit. We had been laughing about old family photos when the call came through. Now the laughter was gone. My mother was the first to speak, her voice careful. Sarah, honey, was that your boss again? I nodded. My throat felt tight. He saw the notification, the one from the work group chat. Emily leaned forward, her brow furrowed. What notification? You never mentioned anything about a group chat? I took a slow breath. It was an accident. I was trying to forward a client file, and somehow the whole thread went out to everyone. His messages were in there too. The ones where he was talking about me. My father set his coffee mug down without drinking from it. What did he say about you? Exactly. I didn't want to repeat it. The words still stung. David Harlan, my boss for the last 4 years, had written in the chat that I was emotional and unreliable, that I needed too much handholding, and that he had been carrying me on the team. He had said it casually, like it was just office talk, but seeing it in black and white sent to the whole department had made something inside me snap. I had replied with one short message everyone deserves to know when their boss is keeping 2 sets of books on people's performance. Then I had left the chat. Now he was calling me at home on a Saturday afternoon while my family was here. He's saying I betrayed him. I told them that I exposed private conversations. Emily's husband, Mark, shifted in his chair. Did you? I forwarded a thread that had already been sent to the whole team by accident, I said. His comments were already there for everyone to see. I just didn't delete mine fast enough. My mother reached over and patted my knee. Maybe you should apologize. He's been good to you, Sarah. All those extra assignments he gave you, the mentoring, that's generosity. The word hit me wrong. Generosity. David had always framed everything as a gift. I'm giving you this project because I believe in you. I'm letting you work from home because I trust you. But every gift came with longer hours, more pressure, and the quiet understanding that if I ever pushed back, the gifts would stop. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Mrs. Harper from next door was watering her flowers. She waved. I waved back automatically. The normalcy of it felt unreal. My phone buzzed again. Another text from David. I already spoke with your mother and sister this morning. They understand now. You've always been difficult. I tried to protect you from yourself. I turned the screen so my family could see it. My mother's face went still. Emily looked away. He called you? I asked quietly. My mother nodded once. He said he was worried about you, that you've been under a lot of stress and making poor decisions. My father cleared his throat. Sarah, maybe you should take a step back from work for a bit. He seems to care about your well-being. I felt the floor tilt under me. David had been busy. While I was trying to host my family, he had been calling them one by one, turning them into his audience. The rest of the afternoon moved in a blur of careful conversations. My sister kept checking her phone. My mother kept offering me tea I didn't want. My father kept saying, let's not make this bigger than it is. Every time I tried to explain what David's generosity had actually cost me, the missed family dinners, the anxiety that followed me home every night, the way he took credit for my ideas in meetings, they gently steered the talk back to how I should smooth things over. By evening, the air in the house felt heavier. We sat around the kitchen table eating leftover lasagna. No one mentioned the cabin trip we had half planned for Sunday. The long weekend that was supposed to be rest now felt like a test I was already failing. My phone lit up again. This time, it was a message from Jennifer Moss in HR. David asked me to reach out. He's concerned about your recent behavior. We should schedule a conversation first thing Monday. I showed my family the message. Emily frowned. Jennifer's always been fair. Maybe you should hear her out. I didn't answer. I was starting to understand the pattern. David didn't need to shout. He just needed everyone else to start repeating his version of the story until mine sounded like an overreaction. Later that night, after everyone had gone to their rooms, I sat on the back porch with a blanket around my shoulders. The neighborhood was quiet. Mrs. Harper's porch light was still on. She stepped outside with her little dog and gave me a concerned look from across the fence. "Everything all right over there, Sarah?" she called softly. I forced a smile. "Just a long day." She nodded like she understood more than I had said. Sometimes the people who smile the widest are the ones holding the sharpest knives. You take care of yourself. I went inside and checked my phone one last time. Another text from David. "Your family agrees with me. Stop making this harder on everyone." I turned the phone face down. In the dark living room, I could hear my mother's soft snoring from the guest room. My sister's voice drifted from upstairs, talking to someone on the phone in low tones. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The group chat notification had started this. David's messages had been exposed. Now he was making sure the only story anyone heard was his. I lay awake for a long time staring at the ceiling. The house that had felt like a safe place for one afternoon now felt like ground that was quietly shifting under my feet. The night felt endless, but when morning came, the house was already moving with soft footsteps and the low murmur of voices in the kitchen. I came downstairs, still in the clothes I had slept in, to find my mother and Emily sitting at the table with their phones face down between them. My father stood at the counter pouring coffee like he was trying to keep his hands busy. Mark was outside on the porch talking on his phone in a low voice. No one looked up right away when I walked in. My mother was the one who broke the silence. "Sarah, we've been talking. David called again last night after you went to bed. He's really worried about you." Her tone was gentle, the same one she used when I was little and had a fever. It made the words land harder. I sat down across from her. "What exactly did he tell you?" Emily picked up her mug but didn't drink. "He said you've been struggling for a while, that he's been covering for you at work, giving you lighter assignments and extra time off because he knows how much pressure you put on yourself. He said the group chat thing was the last straw, and he's afraid you're going to do something that hurts your career." I felt the familiar twist in my stomach, the one that always came when David framed his control as kindness. He didn't give me lighter assignments. He gave me the projects no one else wanted and then took credit when they succeeded. The extra time off was always after I worked 60-hour weeks to fix his mistakes. My father set his coffee down and rubbed the back of his neck. "Honey, maybe you're seeing it that way because you're tired." David sounded genuinely concerned. He said he's been like a mentor to you for years. The word mentor made something sharp rise in my throat. David had used that word too every time he asked me to stay late or take on another person's work. "I'm investing in you," he would say with that calm smile. Then the next week, he would tell the team the idea had been his. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Jennifer Moss in HR Sarah David has asked me to schedule a wellness check-in for you first thing Monday. He's concerned the stress is affecting your judgment. Please confirm a time. I turned the screen so they could see it. Emily leaned in, read it, and sat back. "Jennifer's always been reasonable. Maybe you should just talk to her." "She's not asking to talk," I said. "She's telling me David already decided I need a wellness check-in. He's removing me from the main project thread too. I checked my email this morning. My name isn't on the distribution list anymore. He didn't even tell me." The room went quiet for a moment. My mother reached across the table and touched my hand. "Sarah, he's trying to protect you. Sometimes when people are overwhelmed, they don't see it clearly." I pulled my hand back. The movement was small, but it felt loud. "He's not protecting me. He's making sure no one hears my side." That group chat was an accident, but his messages were already there for the whole team. I just didn't delete my reply fast enough. "Now he's calling all of you and telling you I'm unstable." Emily's voice tightened. "He didn't say unstable. He said you might need support. Support that comes with me apologizing for something I didn't do and agreeing to whatever meeting he sets up." I said, "That's how it works with him. The generosity always has a price." My father sighed and sat down. "We just don't want you to burn bridges, sweetheart. You've worked hard to get where you are. I looked at each of them. My mother's worried eyes, Emily's careful expression, my father's tired face. David had reached them one by one in less than 12 hours and planted the same story. I was the problem. He was the patient one trying to help. The rest of the morning passed in careful conversations that circled the same ground. Every time I tried to explain the pattern, the way David praised me in private, then undermined me in public, the way opportunities always meant more work and less credit, they gently redirected. Maybe you're reading too much into it. He's been good to you for years. Just clear the air on Monday and move on. By afternoon, the plan for the cabin had been revived like a peace offering. We already rented it for the long weekend, Emily said. A couple days away from everything might help everyone calm down. I agreed because saying no would have made me look even more difficult. The cabin was only an hour north, a small place my parents had used for family weekends years ago. We packed in near silence. On the drive, my phone kept lighting up. Texts from David. Your family is worried about you. Stop making this harder on them. I removed you from the client thread for your own good. You need space to think. Jennifer is waiting for your reply. Don't make me involve anyone else. I didn't answer any of them. When we arrived at the cabin, the air felt different, thinner somehow. The place was smaller than I remembered, the wooden porch sagging a little on one side. We carried bags inside and tried to settle into normal things, unpacking food, starting a fire in the old wood stove. Emily and I ended up on the back deck while my parents were inside. She leaned against the railing and looked out at the trees. Sarah, I know you think David is out to get you, but what if he's right about some of it? You have been pulling away from us the last couple years. Maybe the stress at work made you see enemies where there aren't any. The words landed like a quiet slap. I had pulled away because every time I tried to talk about work, David found out and framed it as me complaining. I had stopped calling my sister as often because the last time I did, she repeated something David had told her months earlier. I hadn't realized he was already reaching into my family then. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Sarah, it's Brian from the marketing team. I just got off a call with David. He told us you're taking personal leave starting Monday and that we shouldn't loop you in on anything until you're back. He said it was your choice. My hand tightened around the phone. Brian, I didn't ask for leave. I didn't even know I was off the project thread until this morning. There was a pause. He made it sound like you requested it. Look, I'm just telling you what he said. The whole team is confused. Jennifer from HR sent an email saying any questions should go through her now. I thanked him and hung up. Emily was watching me. Who was that Brian Torres from work? David told the whole team I requested personal leave. He's already rewriting the story for them too. Emily looked down at her hands. Maybe you should just call him back and end this. Apologize for the group chat and ask to be put back on the projects. It doesn't have to be a war. I felt something cold settle in my chest. My own sister was repeating the same line David had fed her. One by one, the people who were supposed to know me best were starting to sound like him. Inside the cabin, my mother called out that dinner was ready. I stayed on the deck a moment longer, staring at the trees. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from David with a screenshot attached. It was the email he had sent to the team about my leave. At the bottom, he had added a note only I could see. See how easy it is when everyone listens to the right voice. Yours is getting quieter by the hour. I put the phone in my pocket and walked back inside. The cabin felt smaller than it had 10 minutes ago. My family was already at the table, passing plates, talking in low voices that stopped when I sat down. No one asked what the call had been about. The dinner table felt like a battlefield, disguised as a family meal. Plates were passed in silence until Emily finally spoke. Sarah Bryan called me too, she said, not looking up from her fork. He said David is trying to give you space because you've been overwhelmed. He asked if we could encourage you to take the leave without fighting it. I set my glass down carefully. The water inside barely moved. Brian called you? My colleague called my sister. My mother sighed the way she did when she thought I was being stubborn. He's just trying to help everyone avoid a bigger mess. David told him the same thing he told us, that you're under a lot of stress, and the group chat was a cry for attention. The words landed with quiet precision. David hadn't just called my family, he had reached my coworker and turned him into another messenger. I looked around the table. My father was pushing food around his plate. Mark kept his eyes on the window. Emily's shoulders were tight. They were all hearing the same story from different directions, and the story always ended with me being the one who needed to calm down. David removed me from the client thread without telling me I said. He announced to the entire team that I requested personal leave. He didn't ask. He decided. That's not generosity. That's control. My father finally looked up. Sarah, you've always been sensitive about work. Maybe he's right that you need a break before you say something you'll regret. The cabin felt smaller with every sentence. The wood stove crackled too loudly. The old wooden walls seemed to lean in. I pushed my chair back and stood. I'm going to get some air. No one stopped me. I stepped onto the back porch and leaned against the railing. The trees were dark now. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another text from David. I hear your family is having a nice dinner. Tell them I said hello. And remember, every time you push back, I have to explain your behavior to more people. It's exhausting for everyone. I didn't reply. I was tired of feeding the story he wanted told. Inside, voices rose and fell. I could hear Emily saying something about professional help, and my mother answering in that careful tone she used when she didn't want to take sides, but already had. The isolation was quiet and polite, wrapped in concern. David didn't need to yell. He just needed everyone else to start repeating his words until mine sounded unreasonable. I stayed on the porch until the cold started to bite through my sweater. When I went back inside, the table had been cleared. My parents were in the living room talking in low voices. Emily and Mark had gone to their room. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but the area code was local. I answered. Sarah, it's your Aunt Patricia. I'm about 20 minutes away. Your mother mentioned you were all at the cabin. I thought I'd come up and see everyone. Aunt Patricia, my mother's older sister. She lived 2 hours north and rarely made surprise visits. We had always been close when I was younger, but the last few years I had pulled back from everyone, including her. David's mentorship had taken most of my free time and most of my trust. She's coming here, I asked when I told my mother. My mother looked surprised, but not unhappy. She must have heard we were up here. It'll be nice to have more family around. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the cabin windows. Aunt Patricia's car pulled up and she got out carrying a small overnight bag and a worn manila envelope. She was in her late 60s with the same careful posture my mother had, but her eyes were sharper. She hugged everyone, then turned to me last. You look tired, Sarah, she said, quietly studying my face. We need to talk. The others went to make tea. Aunt Patricia and I stayed in the small living room. She sat on the old couch and placed the envelope on the coffee table between us. I got a call this afternoon from someone who used to work with you, she said. A woman named Anna Reed. She heard through an old colleague that David Harlan was causing trouble for you again. She asked me to give you this. She slid the envelope toward me. Inside was a single photograph, old and slightly faded. It showed David at what looked like a company holiday party years ago, his arm around a younger woman who was smiling at the camera. On the back, in neat handwriting, someone had written, "He told me I was the only one he trusted with the real work. Then he told everyone else I was difficult and needed support. I left before he could finish rewriting my story. Don't let him do it to you. The pattern never changes." The signature at the bottom was Anna Reed's. I stared at the photo. The woman in it looked happy. David looked exactly the same, calm, generous, in control. Aunt Patricia watched me. Anna said she tried to warn a couple of people after she left, but no one listened. She heard you were still there and that he was doing the same thing using the "I'm helping you" line while he cut you off from everyone else. She found my number through an old family friend. My hands felt cold around the photograph. The note was short, but it named exactly what I had been living: the generosity that came with a price, the quiet removal from conversations and threads, the way he made sure other people heard his version first. I heard footsteps. Emily and my mother came back into the room with mugs. My father followed. Mark stayed in the doorway. Aunt Patricia didn't wait for them to settle. "You all need to see this," she said, and handed the photo to my mother. The room went still as they passed it around. My mother read the back twice. Emily's face changed as she read the note out loud in a low voice. My father sat down heavily in the nearest chair. This is from years ago," my mother said, finally. "David never mentioned anything like this, he wouldn't," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "He only tells the version where he's the patient one and the other person is the problem." Emily looked at me for the first time that evening without the careful mask. "He called me this afternoon and said you were spiraling. He asked me to keep an eye on you this weekend and let him know if you seemed unstable." The word hung in the air. Aunt Patricia's voice was calm but firm. "He's been doing this for a long time. Anna left because he isolated her from her team and then told everyone she couldn't handle the work. She tried to tell people. No one wanted to believe the man who smiled and gave out opportunities was the one creating the problem." My father rubbed his face with both hands. "We should have asked more questions when he started calling us." My mother was still staring at the photograph. "He sounded so reasonable, so concerned." I felt something loosen in my chest, but it wasn't relief. It was the sharp edge of clarity. They were starting to see it, but the doubt David had planted was still there, quiet and stubborn. My phone buzzed on the table. David's name lit up the screen. I let it ring once, then answered and put it on speaker without saying hello. His voice came through smooth and warm. "Sarah, I just wanted to check in. Your family must be worried after everything that's happened. I told Jennifer to hold off on the wellness meeting until you've had time to rest. No pressure." The cabin was completely silent except for his voice. He continued, still pleasant. "I also wanted to let you know I had to loop in a couple more people on the client thread. Brian and a few others. Everyone understands you need space. We're all on the same page now." I looked at my family. My mother's face had gone pale. Emily's mouth was tight. Aunt Patricia's eyes were narrowed. David kept talking, unaware or uncaring that he was on speaker. "Just remember what we talked about. The more you push back, the harder it is for everyone else to support you. Take the leave. Let us handle things. It's the generous thing to do." He hung up. No one spoke for a long moment. Then my father said very quietly, "He called me this morning and told me you were already on leave. He asked me not to mention it to you because it might upset you." The photograph sat in the middle of the coffee table like a stone no one wanted to touch. Aunt Patricia looked at me. "What do you want to do, Sarah?" I picked up the photo and the note. My hands were steady now. The cabin felt smaller than ever, but the walls weren't closing in anymore. They were just walls. "I'm not taking the leave he announced for me," I said. "And I'm not going to the meeting Jennifer scheduled. Not on his terms." Emily nodded once, slow and careful. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand, but her eyes were still on the photograph. My father looked older than he had that morning. Outside, a car door closed somewhere down the road. Mrs. Harper from next door back home had called earlier in the day, but I hadn't answered. She had left a message saying she saw David's car parked near our house the night before while we were packing. She thought it was strange because he had never come by before. I hadn't told anyone yet. The phone on the table lit up again. This time it was a text from David. "Hope you're all having a good night at the cabin. Tell your aunt I said the past stays in the past if everyone cooperates." He knew she was here. He knew about the photograph. The message sat on the screen between us like another photograph no one had wanted to see. The text from David hung in the air like smoke no one wanted to breathe. Aunt Patricia was the first to speak. "He knows I'm here," she said, her voice steady. "He knows about the photograph. That means he's been watching more closely than any of us realized." My mother set the phone down as if it might burn her fingers. He sounded so calm on the call earlier, like he was doing us all a favor. Emily stared at the screen. Her face had lost the careful politeness from dinner. He asked me to report back if you seemed off this weekend. He said it was for your own good. The cabin felt smaller with every word. The fire in the wood stove popped once and went quiet. My father leaned forward, elbows on his knees, looking at the photograph still lying on the table. I believed him, he said quietly. When he called the first time, he sounded like he was trying to protect you. I didn't ask enough questions. Aunt Patricia looked at me. What are you going to do, Sarah? I picked up my phone and opened the message thread with David. The last text still glowed on the screen. I didn't reply to it. Instead, I opened my email and forwarded the photograph and Anna Reed's note to myself, then saved a copy to a folder I had never used before. The action was small, but it felt like the first real step I had taken in months. I'm not going to the meeting he set up with Jennifer, I said, and I'm not taking the leave he announced without me. I'm going to document everything, the group chat, the emails. He removed me from this photograph and every message he sent my family. Then I'm going to talk to HR on my own terms with proof. Emily nodded slowly. I'll back you up with what he said to me. My mother reached for the photograph again, reading the note on the back one more time. Anna Reed. I wonder how many others there are. My father stood up and walked to the window. He made it easy to believe him. He never raised his voice. He just kept saying he was worried about you. The relief in the room was thin and fragile. They were starting to see the pattern, but the doubt David had planted was still there, small and stubborn. I could feel it in the way my mother kept glancing at the phone and the way Emily's shoulders stayed tight. I was about to say something else when my phone rang. The number was local. Mrs. Harper from next door. I answered and put it on speaker. Sarah, it's Evelyn. I'm sorry to call so late, but I saw something yesterday before you all left for the cabin and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Her voice was careful, the way neighbors speak when they don't want to overstep. David Harlan came by your house around 8 p.m. He parked down the street a little and walked up to the porch. He had an envelope with him. He stood there for a minute like he was deciding whether to leave it. Then he turned around and left. But before he got back in his car, he made a phone call. I was on my porch with the dog, and I heard part of it. She paused. I could hear her take a breath. He said, "They're all at the cabin now. The sister is already repeating what I told her. The parents are worried enough to stay out of it. Just keep the messages coming from your end, and we'll have her isolated by Monday." Then he laughed a little and said something about generosity always working better than force. The cabin went completely silent. Mrs. Harper continued, her voice softer. I didn't know who he was talking to. I thought maybe it was work stuff, but after your mother mentioned on the phone earlier that he'd been calling the family, I started putting it together. I thought you should know. Thank you, Mrs. Harper, I said. My voice sounded far away even to me. That helps. She hesitated. You take care of yourself, Sarah. Sometimes the people who smile the most are the ones who need watching. She hung up. No one moved for a long moment. My mother was the first to speak, her voice shaking. He was at our house while we were packing. He was orchestrating this even then. Emily looked at me, and for the first time all weekend, there was no careful distance in her eyes. He used me. He used all of us. Aunt Patricia picked up the photograph and slipped it back into the envelope. The pattern is the same one Anna Reed wrote about. He makes you feel chosen, then he makes sure everyone else hears his version first. By the time you push back, no one is listening to you anymore. I stood up. The decision had been forming since the first phone call in the living room back in Ohio, but it solidified now in the quiet of the cabin. I'm going home tonight, I said. Not tomorrow. Tonight. I need to be in my own space to figure out the next steps. I'm going to contact a lawyer in the morning about documenting the retaliation and the removal from communications. And I'm going to tell Jennifer that any meeting will happen with my documentation and my own representative if I need one. My father nodded. We'll support you however you need. My mother wiped her eyes. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. Emily stood and hugged me tight and quick. I should have asked more questions when he started calling me. I won't do that again. The relief was real, but it was also heavy. They believed me now. The photograph and Mrs. Harper's call had cracked the story David had built, but the crack had cost something. The easy trust between us was gone. Future invitations to family weekends, to holidays, to simple phone calls would carry this weight now. Some of them would hesitate before inviting me. Some conversations would never feel light again. That was the price of the clarity. I packed my bag in 10 minutes. Aunt Patricia walked me to the car. Anna Reed will talk to you if you need her, she said. She's been waiting for someone to listen. You don't have to do this alone, but you also don't have to carry everyone else's doubt anymore. I nodded. The drive back to Ohio felt longer than the drive up had been. The roads were empty. My phone stayed dark for the first hour. Then, just as I crossed the city limit, a text came through from Emily. Mom is still processing. She said she might call David tomorrow to ask him directly about Anna Reed. I told her not to. She said she needs to hear it from him. I'm sorry. Another text followed a minute later. It was from the family group chat, the one we used for holiday plans and weekend get-togethers. The message was from my mother. Sarah, we're going to keep the cabin plans light for now. Maybe we all need some space before the next family weekend. We'll talk soon. I read it twice. The wording was careful, polite. It didn't say I was uninvited. It just made clear that the automatic rhythm of family plans had shifted. The invitations that used to arrive without question would now come with pauses and explanations. I didn't reply. When I pulled into my driveway, the house was dark and quiet. Mrs. Harper's porch light was still on across the street. She waved from her window when she saw my car. I waved back. Inside, I set the envelope with the photograph on the kitchen counter. The note from Anna Reed was still visible. I read it one more time. The pattern never changes. I sat at the table in the dark for a long time. The house felt empty in a way it never had before. The family I had grown up with was still there, but the version of us that existed before this weekend was gone. David had not destroyed it with one blow. He had done it slowly, with patience and generosity that always came with a cost. My phone lit up one last time. A message from David. I hope the drive home gave you time to think. We can still fix this if you're reasonable. The team is waiting for your decision on the leave. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and started a new document. I titled it simply Timeline. Then I began typing the first entry. The group chat notification that started everything. The messages David sent my family, the photograph, Mrs. Harper's call. Every date, every word, every removal from a thread or announcement made without me. The truth was finally on paper in my own words. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like the first quiet breath after holding it for too long. Outside, the neighborhood stayed dark and ordinary. Inside, the only sound was the soft click of keys as I kept writing. The timeline on my laptop grew longer as the night deepened. I added every message, every removal from a thread, every wellness check-in framed as kindness. The photograph from Anna Reed sat beside the keyboard. Mrs. Harper's words about David standing on my porch while we packed for the cabin sat in my notes like another piece of evidence that had been waiting to be seen. By morning, I had a clear document. I attached the group chat screenshots, the emails I had been quietly removed from Anna Reed's photograph and note, and a short statement of what Mrs. Harper had witnessed. I sent it to Jennifer Moss in HR with a single sentence in the body: I will not be attending any meeting scheduled by David Harlan. I am requesting a formal review of his actions with my documentation attached. I will only communicate through official channels going forward. I copied David on the email. Then I closed the laptop and made coffee in the quiet kitchen. The house felt different in daylight. Not safer exactly, but mine in a way it hadn't felt for years. My phone rang while the coffee was still brewing. It was my mother. Sarah? I read what you sent, she said. Her voice was tired. Your father and I talked most of the night. We believe you. But your aunt is still asking questions, and Emily wants to give David one chance to explain the photograph. I stirred the coffee slowly. I'm not asking anyone to take sides against him. I'm asking that you stop repeating his version of me to each other and to him. That's the boundary. There was a long pause. I understand, my mother said finally. We won't call him again about this, but the next family weekend, we're going to keep it small for now, just the immediate family. We need time. The words were careful. They didn't say I was uninvited. They simply removed the automatic place I had always held in the plans. The group chat that used to fill with dates and who's bringing what stayed silent on my phone. No one had removed me. They had simply stopped, including me in the rhythm of things. That was the loss. It was quiet and permanent in its own way. I told her I understood and ended the call. Later that afternoon, a message came from Amanda Ruiz, one of the newer people on the marketing team. I saw the email you sent HR. I've been on the receiving end of David's mentorship before. A couple of us are documenting our own experiences quietly. If you need another name for your file, I'm here. I saved her message with the rest. The cracks were small, but they were appearing. David's version of events was no longer the only one being heard. That evening, Mrs. Harper knocked on my door with a plate of cookies she claimed she had made too many of. We sat on the front steps while the light faded. I've lived next to this house for 8 years, she said. I've seen people come and go from that office building downtown. The ones who smile the biggest and offer the most help are usually the ones who need the most control. I should have said something sooner when I saw his car here. You did say something, I told her. It mattered. She nodded. You're not the first person he's tried to isolate. You probably won't be the last, but you're the first one I've seen write it all down instead of just disappearing. After she left, I went back inside and opened the document again. I added her name and what she had seen. The timeline was no longer just mine. It belonged to every person who had been told they were difficult or ungrateful or in need of support, while the same man quietly removed their voice from every room they had once been invited into. The following week, Jennifer Moss replied to my email. The meeting with David was canceled. A formal review was opened. David was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. The language in her message was neutral and careful, but the result was the same. The story he had controlled for years was no longer moving in only one direction. I did not celebrate. I sat at the kitchen table with the photograph of Anna Reed and read the note on the back one more time. The pattern never changes. It had changed for me because I had stopped accepting the pattern as normal. My family still called, but the calls were shorter and more careful. The easy laughter that used to fill our conversations was gone. When my mother mentioned a possible holiday gathering, she added, "We'll see how everyone is feeling closer to the date." The automatic invitation was no longer automatic. I accepted the distance without fighting it. Choosing myself had cost the version of family that had existed before the group chat notification exposed everything. That was the price. I paid it without asking for a refund. One afternoon in late fall, I ran into Brian Torres at the grocery store. He looked uncomfortable for a moment, then said, "The team is different without him there. Amanda and a couple others have been sharing their own timelines. HR is actually listening this time." I nodded good. He hesitated. "You okay? I'm getting there," I said. It was the truth. That night I sat on the back porch with a blanket and looked at the dark sky. The house next door was quiet. Mrs. Harper's light was off. My phone stayed dark. No messages from David. No messages from the family group chat about weekend plans. The silence was not comfortable, but it was mine. I had spent years accepting generosity that came with invisible strings. I had let a man rewrite my story in every room he entered until even the people who loved me started repeating his lines. The group chat notification had been an accident. The photograph and Mrs. Harper's call had been the truth arriving through side doors no one had bothered to lock. Facades do not survive when the truth is written down and handed to the people who were never supposed to see it. I was no longer the woman who stayed quiet to keep the peace. I was the woman who had chosen the harder clarity over the easier silence. The cost was real. The invitations that used to arrive without question now arrived with pauses. The family that had once been automatic now required explanation. I accepted both. Some nights the house felt too quiet. On those nights, I opened the timeline document and added one more line if something new had surfaced. The act of writing it down was no longer about proving anything to anyone else. It was about keeping the truth in my own hands. I was still healing. But I was healing on my own terms in my own house with the photograph of a woman I had never met sitting on the counter as a reminder that the pattern only continues when no one writes it down. Thank you for listening to my story. If this helped you see a pattern you've been living inside, comment healing.